Well, as has been stated, the nation of Israel is at war. Following Saturday's surprise attack by the Hamas terrorist group, the world looked on in horror as video of the brutal invasion played out in near real time online. Hundreds have been killed, including a confirmed 9 Americans. Thousands injured and at least 150 hostages have been taken. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu delivered a short message just a little while ago in Jerusalem comparing Hamas to ISIS and saying this, quote, Israel will win this war, end quote. Joining me now from Jerusalem to discuss the latest from this still developing war is Chris Mitchell, Middle East Bureau Chief with CBN News. Chris, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Great to be with you again, Tony.
So, Chris, give us the latest. I know you and I have spoken over the weekend. Give me the latest on what's happening there tonight in Israel.
Well, one major development, Tony, is the 300,000 reservists that have been called up. I think it's the fastest call up within 48 hours that Israel's had in its history. It looks like all the communities on the southern border have been taken back, controlled by the IDF, although 15 of the 24 communities there on the southern border have been evacuated. That's one thing on the southern border. On the northern border, there are some things happening. Yesterday, Hamas fired some mortars into northern Israel. That has been retaliated by the IDF. Just a little while ago, there were 6 infiltrators that came in across the border. So that's something key to watch out. What happens on the northern border? Will Hezbollah come into this conflict? Here in Jerusalem, on Saturday morning, we were woken to many sirens and then the sounds of the Iron Dome anti-missile system shooting down those rockets. This afternoon, there were more rockets in this area. We were on our balcony there at the News Bureau, listening to the sirens and hearing some of the Iron Dome interceptors take down some of the rockets. However, some did fall just outside of Jerusalem. But the main story, Tony, is what happened with this carnage. This is something Israel has never, ever seen. And you can see the anger and the fury out of Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu to see whole families that were slaughtered, this rave concert, maybe 260 people massacred at that. And then the video of so many people literally being kidnapped in real time, and some of the atrocities of desecrating the bodies inside the Gaza Strip on the streets. This is infuriating many Israelis, and I think they're going through a whole different series of thoughts. They're confused. How could this have happened? We know, for one, it's really been a massive and colossal intelligence failure. But right now, I would say Israelis are rallying back to go ahead and take back Gaza and destroy Hamas. I was talking to the IDF spokesman yesterday, and he said this is a sea change. Things aren't going to go back the same as normal, and Israel will eventually win this war.
Yeah, I'm going to talk with General Boykin a little bit later about the intelligence failure here, because that's something Israel is known for, is good intelligence, and we've not seen something of this magnitude in 50 years. The comments, the statement earlier this evening from the Prime Minister were very measured and determined and very precise when he says that we will finish this war. I think they've been restrained by the international community in the past. I get a sense that he was serious when he says he's going to finish this.
I get the same thing, same feeling, not only from Prime Minister Netanyahu, but from other officials, that what they want to do is they want to destroy Hamas and its infrastructure. That was the message when we talked to Ambassador Danny Danon, former Israeli ambassador to the United Nations. I think the sense about the military leadership and the political leadership, as well as Israelis right now, is they're not going to tolerate a terrorist state on its border. They've done that for many years. Hamas took over the Gaza Strip in 2007. And during that time, since then, they've fought a number of operations, but they've been limited in scope, and they've usually had some sort of a ceasefire at the end. I don't think there's going to be a ceasefire at this time unless they maybe succumb to international pressure until Hamas is really devastated. And the carnage, the kind of visceral reaction to this here in Israel, I think is going to propel the military and the political leadership to go ahead and do that. Tony, too, Israel is sort of like a family. Each and every man and woman has to serve in the IDF. Everybody knows somebody that's in the Army, who's been in the Army, and or maybe who has been affected by this carnage. And so I think Israel, even though it's really confused and it was angry at the intelligence failure, I think they're going to join forces and do what they can to eliminate Hamas forever.
I've seen some video that has been sent to me of showing some of the very graphic carnage that has taken place, and I've worked with some of the IDF members in years past, and I know there's a very tight-knit community because everyone serves. And to see what has been done to some of those members of the IDF that were overrun, and as you mentioned, how even their bodies desecrated. I don't think, my sense is, Israel's not going to be as sensitive to the international community telling them to stop. I think they are going to finish this once and for all because, as you said, this goes beyond anything we've seen before.
Yeah, in fact, when we talked to Ambassador Danny Danon, he said he's been in touch with his colleagues after being in the UN for 5 years, some of his colleagues around the world. He's been saying to them, we appreciate your sympathy now, your support now, but when things change in about a week or two, when the videos are going to come out maybe from Gaza, when maybe Palestinian families are in harm's way, then that is the time when true friends stand with us. And don't forget exactly how and why this conflict started. It's predictable, Tony. I know you've seen this before. I have seen this before. Israel gets attacked. When it responds, the whole narrative changes and Israel becomes the aggressor and not the victim. And so I think that's going to be the true test when we see in a week or two and expected a ground invasion expected into the Gaza Strip. And that's going to be the change. But I think you're right. I think Israel, because of what's happened, because of maybe I've heard numbers now up to 1,200 Israelis murdered, women and children, elderly, even Holocaust survivors. I think it's a whole different world right now, a new paradigm shift for Israel. And they're not going to be, I think, as sensitive to the international community as they have been in the past.
Right. Well, in the past, it's been mostly rockets that have been fired. In fact, I was there in the summer of 2014 when there were all those attacks there, and we spent a lot of time in bunkers. But this is different, where you have actual invasion and you have the wholesale slaughter of civilians. So, Chris, before we run out of time, two things. One, does the IDF seem to have a handle on the situation now, or is it still very volatile?
Well, I think they have a handle on the situation down there in those communities. Like I said, many of them have been evacuated all right. I would add that just a few minutes ago, the Home Front Command is asking all Israelis to have 72 hours worth of food and water. So they're preparing for, a retaliation and that invasion. I would add, Tony, too, as well. I don't think I've known of in many prayer meetings, home groups, and people around the world, Christians praying for Israel right now. And I think that's a very important point to be making. And as my friend Bishop Robert Stearns from Eagle's Wings said, this is affecting the Jewish community around the world. So if you have a Jewish friend, reach out to them, comfort them. If you have a local synagogue, tell them you're standing with them.
Well, that was my second question, and we're up against that break. But the number one thing that we need to be praying for right now for Israel, what is it?
Wisdom for leaders right now, comfort for the families, especially for those that have lost loved ones and those who have their loved ones right now in captivity. I think those are two big things, and pray that Israel can do what it needs to do.
All right, Chris Mitchell, we will do that. Thank you for staying up so late there in Jerusalem to join us here on Washington Watch. We're praying for you.
Thanks, Tony.